Hello and welcome to Guild Wars Players News, the podcast where we take a look at Guild Wars game series news and talk about content on our site, Guild Wars Players. I am Sithrith, and today we have Draculetta.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And we have Athelros.
Yes, I'm also here.
Yeah, cool.
And that actually sounded kind of happy, even, a little bit.
Yeah, well, for Athelros anyway.
Take what you can get.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, we don't have a ton of news this week. We were supposed to get an update. As you remember, we were supposed to get that big camera update this week, as well as some other stuff, like change accessibility and some other little tweaks, but it got pushed back. We're not really sure why, but it did. And so we don't have really anything. We don't even have any new stuff in the gem store, because that also got pushed back, because they usually do that with the updates. And let me actually read you what Gail Gray specifically said on the forums about the pushback for this update. She said, "Hey there, we know that some of you are anticipating a new build for Guild Wars 2 on March 10th. We wanted to give you a heads up that the game update is coming, but it will not be going out on March 10th. At the present time, contents of the build are undergoing additional QA testing. If we get more information about an anticipated time frame for the build release, we'll provide that info in advance, or we'll try to. But, of course, as always, we will update in the forums with detailed update notes when the build goes live." And as of right now, of course, it has not gone live yet, and this is a few days later. So they must really have to do some kind of testing on this.
Yeah, if
Don't
it's
know
going
what.
through quality assurance again, apparently there was some very glaring bugs or something that creeped up. That would be the only reason why I could see them delaying it and making it go through QA again. So,
Yeah.
but I guess overall that's a good thing, because they want to put it out in a polished state
Definitely.
and not in, like a horrible buggy mess. So I guess
Right.
kudos to them for that, but kind of disappointing we have to wait.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking forward to taking some pretty cool screenshots and stuff, but like you said, I'd much rather be like a functioning build than something that's going to cause a lot of problems. And one thing we do know is apparently the Chinese Guild Wars 2 site accidentally posted the patch notes for the patch. They've since pulled them down, but people did get a chance to see them and translate them and post them up on Reddit, of course, in the Guild Wars 2 subreddit. So we do know some of the stuff that is intended for this patch. Again, though, this was pulled down already. We don't know if this stuff is actually going to go with this update. Hopefully it will, because there's some pretty cool stuff that people translated out of this. For example, Athelros, they are removing World v. World from map completion requirements.
Woohoo.
So excited.
I would be more enthusiastic if I found this out about a month ago.
Fair
before
enough.
I started doing all the World v World completion to get world completion. As it is, I'm probably just going to end up doing world v World completion anyway.
Just because.
But, it's great for people who playing later don't have to do it. Obviously, for alts, I may or may not roll at some point.
Mm-hmm. Some other interesting things are they're adding 3 new faces per race, it said. This brought up some questions, because 3 new faces, does that mean 3 per gender per race? Or just 3 faces? Is it only going to be 3 faces for one gender and none for the other? Or is it going to be 2 for one gender and 1 for the other gender? Or are we going to start getting unisex faces? I don't know what the deal is with that. I think unisex faces would be interesting.
And possibly creepy.
Yeah, depending.
I go with the creepy.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. Well, I'll talk about my necromancer later. My necromancer. Okay. But there's also, it said there's going to be new Black Lion skins called Shadow Weapons, and I know, Drac, this made you really excited.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, this treads on Guild Wars territory here, because there are shadow weapons you get in Guild Wars, and they looked amazing, and everybody wanted them.
Are they so when it says shadow weapons, I'm picturing you know how when necromancers go into Death Shroud, they basically turn into a black cloudy thing, but you can kind of see their outline in the cloud. Mm-hmm. I'm picturing weapons like that. Is that what shadow weapons are, or is it something?
Not really. They're basically just very, very black.
Okay.
They do kind of have a little bit of a little shadow misty stuff around them, but they're basically just very, very black skin weapons.
Okay.
They came from the realm of torment.
Ooh, freaky.
So when I seen this, I thought, That's yet something else from Guild Wars that they possibly could be bringing forward. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So we don't know when this update's going to happen. I'm thinking it's probably going to be next week, I think. Because, I mean, also they've been really busy. Last weekend was PAX East. This weekend is Rezzed in London. So they're all over the place. But hopefully next week we'll get it. And lots of pretty screenshots and new faces, possibly. So this past weekend, like I said, was PAX East. And they had the 2015 World Tournament Series for Boston. And Orange Logo, the PvP team from the EU, has won. And they won out over Abjurd, The Dinkening, and Heaven and Earth, which are two North American and a Chinese team, respectively. And I watched the Twitch stream, and it was pretty intense. And it was really intense PvP. So good job to them. That was pretty exciting. And there'll be a link in the show notes. You can also watch the match if you missed out. And yeah, it's pretty good. So like I said, we didn't really have a whole lot of game news this week, but we do have some Guild Wars Players news. So this week we got a new writer on the site, and they put out their first fan fiction writing. So we have fan fiction stories on our site now, and this is called Kelsandra Human Ranger, and this is chapter 1, and it is by Alicia J. And this is the story of Kelsandra, the Human Ranger, and her pet Drake. I'm going to pronounce it wrong, probably. Sturgeon, or I don't know if I'm supposed to... Sturgeon, something. I don't know. But it is really good, so go read it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing future chapters. And Drac, we also have a new Sounds of Tyria from you, of course.
Yes, and I am still featuring Guild Wars Factions this time around. It is a track off the soundtrack called The Day of the Jade Wind. The reason why I picked this one is it starts out very low, very quiet, kind of ethereal, kind of haunting-like. And then there's some drums that start. They slowly just start. And then near the end, you're just bombarded with like Oriental Chinese type drums that just bombard you out of nowhere. So it's a great build up to a great track, and once again, it's very, you can tell the influence of Factions lean towards like the Oriental type side, because you can really hear that in this track. So go give it a listen, and I think next week I will do one more from Factions, and then I think I'll move on to Nightfall, and we'll revisit Factions later.
Cool beans. So this week we had Adventures in Tyria number 3, called Logan. And before I talk about the episode a little bit, I talked at the very start of this episode's recording, we're kind of going to be changing how we do Adventures in Tyria. Basically, instead of every week at Saturday at 5 p.m., we would just take whoever showed up. It was actually way more popular than we anticipated it being, and that proved a little bit problematic. And because, the maximum group size in Guild Wars 2 is 5, and this kind of taking whoever came on system was what we did for Lotra Players Adventures, and that worked there because we could have raids of up to like 24, 32 people, whatever. So it was, you could have these big, huge groups, and it wasn't really a problem. But with only group sizes of 5, people get lost, and none of us have the money to get a commander tag, and having so many people on the Skype call, it just wasn't working out. So instead, we are going to be switching to a sign up in advance kind of thing, where we will both mostly be focusing on dungeons, but possibly other things as well. We'll provide more information about how to sign up for that stuff at a later date once we get it all sorted out. But yeah, that's how it's going to work. It'll be a bit more organized and a little bit less, seat of our pants. But in this week's episode, we teamed up with Sarah and Terry Adwin, and we did the first 2 dungeons, Ascalon Catacombs and Caudicus's Manor, where we had to deal with Logan being Logan.
Oh, Logan.
Oh, Logan.
Such a...
Hey now. Hey now.
I will go there.
Right.
Honestly, you could just as easily say, Caudicus's Manor, because that place is my least favorite of the dungeons we've done so far.
What about Sorrow's Embrace with the dredge?
Oh, yeah.
That took like an hour.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do that again before I make a decision on whether I think that's worse. Because I think the bombers in Codicus Manor are kind of annoying.
Fair enough. So this week I also started putting out a PvP series for getting into PvP because I know a lot of I've been getting into PvP a lot the past few weeks, as I've talked about multiple times at this point. And I know a lot of people I've seen have been like, oh, I kind of want to try PvP, but it's really scary. Or I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't want to piss people off or whatever. And that's pretty much how I felt going into PvP as well. So I figured, now that I kind of have a handle on the whole PvP situation, I'll write up some guides. So I have 3 guides out of the 4 written so far. The first one is called Overcoming Fears, and I basically just give you information some tips for communicating with your fellow PvPers and how to, navigate the PvP chat, basically. In the second one, Heart of the Mists, I go over the actual PvP lobby itself and talk about all the different things you can do there and how it can help your PvP experience. And the third one is the build-up, which is where I talk about the weapon sets and stats and traits and how to get your PvP build set up once you're in the PvP lobby. The next and final guide will be about how to, what you actually do in a match, different phrases that you might hear, and, so I'll tell you what those mean, and information on the different maps and map types, and how to go about fighting and stuff. So hopefully it gives you guys some pretty good information, and makes you a little bit less scared to get into PvP. And yeah, that's the goal of it. Char also put out a PvP guide this week. His is also about, getting started in PvP. He talks about metabattle.net and the importance of not being super noobish, I guess. And yeah, so he has some slightly differently oriented getting into PvP guides. His is more focused on if you're already level 80 and you have exotic gear and stuff. So slightly different audiences, I think. But otherwise, yeah, go check out those guides. And Thoros, you watched this week's video?
Yeah. It's about Codan. So, yeah, beers. Yeah, this video uses the soundtrack from The Hobbit. I think it was from the trailer, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of simulation of it's a machinima covering the journey of a Codan. I believe using the Codan tonic to kind of film in all the different areas. I think it's quite well put together, actually, and should be an interesting thing if it is a series. I'm not quite sure how far they intend to go with it, but
yeah, the cinematography on it is really good.
Yeah, the description, it's more of a who knows at this point, but I hope they do make more of this because it's quite high quality.
Oh yeah, it's really good. So this week's weekly community outfit is actually from Char, and he sent in a picture of his Ranger Char Odell, and he says, when she isn't spoiling her favorite spider affectionately named Blub Pew with canned fancy beast, she can be found scouting for her guild in the eternal battlegrounds or roaming the endless lands of Tyria, trying in vain to catch them all. Her partner in crime, Lilica Foster, is a callous but ironically supportive engineer who, though being her younger sister, has become the closest thing to an authority figure this runaway has ever accepted as not spider food. So yeah, the outfit actually reminds me of some very thief gear, some thief clothes, and uses charcoal, autumn, tea jeans, and river dye. And it's actually an underwater shot, which I think is the first outfit we've had on the site based underwater. Although obviously it also works not underwater, but you know what I mean. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And if you would like your outfit featured on the site, feel free to send us your screenshots at contact@guildwarsplayers.com with the subject line weekly outfit, and we'll post it up on the site. People can see it and all of that good stuff. So this is the part where I usually do the lore book, but because of daylight savings time changes, this show is actually happening an hour earlier for me than normal, and so I ran out of time and I forgot. I'm sorry. No lore book. But if you have a specific area of lore, like a certain zone or like a certain race or something, you're like, gosh, I wish I knew more about that race or whatever, email us and we will talk about it. So, Atharos, what did you do this week in game?
Well, aside from the aforementioned runs of Ascalon Catacombs and Kurikos' Manor, I also did Citadel Flame with you and Drac, which was fun. The boss fights are kind of interesting in their mechanics. Seem to involve a lot of throwing things at bosses that you can't otherwise damage.
Yeah.
Not sure how I feel about that, but it was an interesting run. We also did some Living Story, which I suppose I'll leave for you to cover because it's your living.
What? Just talk about it. Go for it.
We're stupid.
Yeah, we're really dumb. The moral of the Living Story is that Drac and Atharos and Scissorith are dumb. So, remember how we were all complaining how hard the Living Story is? Although, to be fair, I still think the Dragon one is hard, but, I mean, now I'm questioning everything, basically. So, I got my Necromancer to level 80, and so I decided I was going to do Living Story, and Drac hadn't done his yet either, so we decided we were all going to do Living Story together. Atharos hadn't done the earlier ones yet, and so, okay, we'll start from the beginning. We'll do Living Story together. We get, I don't know, a few instances in or whatever, and we get to the fight where you'd fight the Soundless Sylvari, who I guess in retrospect is probably a Mordremoth minion. But that guy, and basically, if you know the fight that I'm talking about, you'll know that Aaron, the Sylvari, stands up on top of all these rock outcroppings, and you have to get up to the rock outcroppings to fight him. And down at the bottom, Marjorie and Casimir and all of them are all fighting vines and stuff. Now, we spent, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes
at least
trying to do this fight, at least. Because there's all these crystals from the Zephyrite, and we thought the only way to get up onto these these rock outcroppings was by using the blue crystals to jump up, which is really frustrating when vines keep knocking you all over the place and you only get one jump per crystal. So it was really frustrating. We were like swearing and we're like so angry, like, oh my gosh, Living Story is so awful. And then when Aaron is maybe at like 2 or 3% health, I get knocked onto another rock outcropping and I'm looking around like, oh gosh, can I jump over to where he is? And I'm looking around and I realize there's a ramp up from the ground. We don't actually have to jump.
Yeah.
So that was when we realized that we're just dumb and like we have no idea what we're doing. We don't know how to play video games at all. So now I'm questioning everything about how difficult the Living Story is, and it might just be that I have no idea what I'm doing at all, ever. We were very frustrated ourselves after that.
If there's a ramp that beats the dragon, I did not see it.
I don't think there's a ramp for the dragon, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that happened. Anything else you did this week?
Nothing else I care to mention, no.
And Drac, what did you get up to?
I pretty much did the same thing and just, oh look, there's a ramp.
You also had no idea what you were doing?
Yes, I also had no idea that there was a ramp there. We did do, and like I said, that we're kind of doing the dungeons, at least the personal story versions of the dungeons in order. And you did say that we did the Citadel of Flame. I liked the area and the look of the dungeon, but that boss fight wasn't impressed with that boss fight at all in there. But
the lava balls that get thrown at you are not
that was a cool
and then
dungeon,
the walls that come up and trap you inside them.
Oh yeah, when you're fighting the boss of Citadel of Flame, he sends up these like lava claw wall things, and if you're standing where they spawn, you'll just have to stand there and deal with it and not move, basically.
And it needs to be said, in the Catacossus Manor dungeon we did, I may or may not have stood by and was near where Zosha was the whole entire dungeon with my mini Zosha. Maybe. Possibly.
Maybe.
Could be.
Maybe.
I'm not saying either way. I'm not saying I did maybe tweet out a picture of it too, maybe. If you look at my Twitter, maybe you might see it.
Maybe.
Well, because Zosha, I had to. PvP, I played some with my Ranger. Had 2 really, really, really bad experiences in PvP. So yeah, I think I'm about done with PvP, I think.
So much for 2 weeks of trying.
Yeah, the last one really was bad. The first one was kind of bad. We decided there was a bunch of us from the guild that was on, and Braxwolf had never done PvP before.
Oh, okay.
So I said, well, hey, let's queue up, and we'll be in the same party if we're queued together in a party, and we can try it. Well, about that time, Corel came on, and he said, sure, let's try it. We'll show Brax. So we got on, and it was okay until in our party chat, somebody just like started yelling that we were all standing in the same place and we didn't know what the blank we were doing. And I was just like, yeah. And poor Brax, that was his like first PvP experience ever. So I was I kind of told him where to go, and we're going to try to take this point and just stay here, and I'll try to like keep you alive. And they'll probably rush in at some point to try to retake this, so be ready. And then that guy like yelled, well, everybody's grouped up, you got to spread out, you people don't know anything. And it's like, yeah. And then soon after that, I went in by myself and had just about the same experience. I was told
this week is bad for PvP.
Yeah.
I had some bad experiences this week as well.
They basically told me that my build sucked and I really should never play a ranger ever again.
Okay, so this is something I was going to talk about for mine, but since you kind of brought it up, I don't seem to have that many problems when I'm on my necromancer, but I started trying to play my ranger, and like I'm about the same skill level on my ranger as I am on my necromancer. Like I'm not great, but I'm not the worst.
Right.
But people are so angry at people who play rangers. Like if you don't play a ranger perfectly, your team just yells at you and freaks out for some reason. I don't get it.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just because I'm on my ranger.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I had so many people like yell at me and be like, "Don't bother queuing up if you don't know what you're doing." And it's like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose. If I don't know what I'm doing, how am I supposed to learn if I don't play? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I tried ranked, I tried unranked. Get yelled at either way. And in chat, Ed Orr says, in fairness, people getting angry is not a reflection on you; it's a reflection on them, and that is a good point. That is a
very good point. Actually, that is.
Because haters gonna hate basically, and he also says mediocre players tend to be the ones that shout at you. That's the thing. A lot of the times, the people that yell at me are, once the match ends, they have the lowest score. They've contributed the least to the match, and I always feel better at myself for having a better score than them. But yeah, like I don't know. It's just people seem to get really rude at rangers for some reason, in my experience.
Well, and that's all I've PvP'd with. Maybe I should try my Necro or my Elementalist one time and to see if I have any different experiences on those. That's actually something I might try just to see.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just some Ranger hate going on.
There might be. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I think also another contributing factor is because last weekend we had the 75% off sale, so a lot of new players are coming in. So, new players are coming in, so a lot of them don't know what's going on, and that's fine. But then more experienced players are probably getting more frustrated that there's more new players who don't know what they're doing, so they start getting angrier quicker, I guess. And then possibly older players are coming back because their friends are joining and they expect people to know what they're doing or something, I don't know. So, it just hasn't been a good week for PvP. But yeah. Anything else that you did? That
is pretty much all that I did.
All right. So, yeah, we did Citadel Flame. We were stupid and we didn't have any idea what we were doing in Living Story. And yeah, I did a whole lot of PvP on my Ranger and Necro. And now to talk about my Necro a little bit. So, apparently, my Necromancer is very confusing to people. Because I have now had 3 people question what gender my Necromancer is.
Maybe you do have the unisex face.
I might already have this like mythical unisex face that I was talking about. So yeah, because it started with Citadel of Flame. one of the other players, because I started the instance, my character was in the cutscenes, and like right after we got out of the first cutscene, they're like, "Is that a boy or a girl?" It's like, well, first of all, it's a plant; it doesn't matter. But
It was
and I was like,
very confusing.
I was like,
actually,
does it matter? And they're like, kinda. I'm like, well, no, it doesn't. But then after Adventures in Tyria was done, Sarah was like, since when has your necromancer been a girl? And I was like, well, it hasn't. Since never.
Oh, poor Sethrath.
And then there was some other instance in PvP, somebody was like looking at you and was like, or was looking at my necromancer and was like, your character kind of looks like a girl. And I was like, oh, okay. So I've kind of just accepted that my necromancer is agender, but that's okay because he's too busy killing people and draining their life force and being evil to care. So, yeah, Sylvari.
I'm not quite sure why people wonder so much. It's like
that's the other thing. It's
just
like,
your
why does it
necro
matter?
for some reason. Yeah, I mean, nobody's ever said anything about any of your other characters that I know of. It's just your necro is very confusing to people for some reason.
Yeah. Is it because he's like pink and purple? Is it because he has flowers in his hair? But like he's got that Sylvari tier 3 cultural armor chest piece that basically just looks like he's not wearing a shirt, and he's obviously not female in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know,
but I'm kind of liking confusing people. It's kind of fun. So yeah, that was my week. So I think that's about it for all the things we did. And also, before I move on, Ed Orr in chat does say that he just got back from Rezzed in London, which is pretty cool, and he got to play Heart of Thorns, and said that in Heart of Thorns we're going to see a huge collapse of the meta. It's going to be a huge leveler for PvP with all the new specializations, new classes, etc., or new class singular. So that's pretty cool. That is exciting. I think a lot of our issues, especially with Ranger, I think go down to people have very specific expectations of what a Ranger will do because it's like it's been proven this is effective and you need to do this to be effective. So if you don't do that specific build, then you suck and you're the worst and get out of my match and whatever. But whatever, play the way you want. Ignore the haters. I like PvPing because I just like PvPing, even when I die a lot. Anyway. Next, we have Guild Wars 2 Academy, which is where we answer questions sent in by new players looking to learn more about the game. And this week, the question is, how does the trait system work? Do traits matter more for PvP in World v. World than they do for PvE? And I'd say no, they do not matter more for PvP in World v. World than they do for PvE. As I think we've talked about a little bit in the past, changing your build a lot, especially like what weapons you use and your traits can have a significant change on how well you do. It might not be super noticeable when you're just doing landscape, like hearts and stuff, but once you start doing dungeons, once you start doing living story stuff, that kind of trait changes and such will definitely be very noticeable. And the trait system basically works. Once you hit, I think, level 30, level 31, something like that, you start unlocking trait points, and you just kind of slot them. It works a lot like most other games. You have different, what are they called? What is the word I'm looking for, you guys? Lines. Yes, lines. And there's 4 per class, and it's not like, if you put points into one, you can't put points into any of the others. That's not how it works. You can put them into however or whatever many ones you want, but of course you only get, 14 trait points. Mm-hmm. And so you have to figure out where exactly you want to put those. So luckily, it does tell you all the traits before you unlock them, so you can figure out which ones you want to work towards unlocking. But 5 per class, because I can count things. But yes, 5 per class. But yeah, definitely, it's definitely very important for PvE as well as PvP and World v. World. It's just important all the time, basically. Do you guys have any additions to traits? Did I miss anything?
I do not claim to know much of anything about traits, aside from the falling trait is very nice.
Yes.
If you're doing jumping puzzles, it is almost mandatory, I would say.
Yeah, most, if not all, classes have a trait they can slot that I think like halves falling damage, and it's very helpful if you're doing jumping puzzles.
And the only thing that I'll add is just remember once you get to the point where you can use traits to go ahead and do them. Because I just realized last week I haven't traded anything on my Necro at all. I completely forgot about traits. And I had like a bunch of trait points to spend, and I had nothing traded. So don't forget it's there. Just like everything we say, just experiment with it, play with it, and find out what works for you and what doesn't, and what you like. Because really, it's if you're having fun, you're doing it right.
Exactly. So this week we actually do have a donation, so really, really big thanks to Richard Nelson for supporting Guild Wars players and the Players Alliance Network on Patreon. Richard wrote, "The Guild Wars podcast is great. Keep up the good work." So thank you so much for supporting us, Richard. That really helps us keep the site going and the podcast going and all of that. If you would like to help support Guild Wars players, you can go to our donation page and support the Players Alliance Network on Patreon. And you can get rewards like getting a mention like I just did for Richard. Or you can even be a guest on this show, which is cool. Because we're cool. We also got an iTunes review. We got an iTunes review this week. 5 stars. So we have 3 5-star reviews now, which is really cool. And Sleep_Tight wrote, "I have enjoyed this podcast so much. I bought the game last week when it was 75% off and stumbled upon this podcast looking for information about the game. The hosts have a great attitude, though I am an Asura Necromancer. Sorry. But I like Necromancers now. So yeah. That's one less thing to worry about.
But just not the Asura yet. But I'm working on you on those, though. I'm slowly working on you.
Yeah, keep trying.
I'll get you there.
And, okay. And, the hosts have a great attitude and do not see the game with the elitist eyes most podcasts do. Very friendly. So thank you very much, Sleep Tight. We really appreciate the stars and the very kind words. Good to know that we are as new player friendly as we set out to be. So this week we also got an email from Richard Nelson, who, like I said, donated. And Richard says, "Hey guys and gal, I have kind of gathered some of your opinions on this subject just by listening to the episodes, but I figured I would ask here anyway. Do you try to match the theme of a class or profession with the race or build of a character, or do you play against type? For example, I love to play against type with most of my characters in World of Warcraft. I played a gnome warrior with the largest 2-handed swords I could find and an undead holy priest. I would love to hear your opinions." Tharos, I know you definitely try to play to type a lot.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessive about that sort of thing. The reason I originally rolled a Sylvari Mesmer specifically is because I felt that the Sylvari kind of fit the Mesmer theme the best. Mm-hmm. I can't exactly explain why. I just kind of feel like it does.
All magically and stuff.
And
butterflies.
This kind of thing is why I've been part of why I've had troubles creating an alt and actually rolling with it, because there's just certain combinations I can't actually play. Like, it just doesn't feel right to work with. Like, what was the example we used a lot?
Sylvari Engineer?
Yeah, that's one of them, yeah. And that's just that sort of thing, like, Charm Mesmers kind of seem weird to me as well. Like, I know people do it, and that's fine. It's just, I can't do it myself. It just feels off.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a thing I tend to do a lot.
Yeah, I tend to do it as well. I guess not for any particular reason why. It just seems like what I've always done. Mm-hmm. I know I picked my Elementalist is an Asura because that just made the most sense to me. Mm-hmm. And I even go one step further when I have to pick which... and I just lost my train of thought. You know what I'm trying to say,
I don't know.
So
you pick your color scheme?
Like the Priory, the...
Oh, yeah, the orders and stuff.
The orders.
Yeah, the orders, thank you. I could not, for the life of me, think of that word. I tend to try to think what would fit most logically with them, even as well. So I take it like one step further. I really try to match everything. And I really don't have a particular reason why I do. It seems like... going like way back when I first started playing MMOs and like Ultima Online, I did it there too. So it's just something I've always done.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I started the game kind of trying to, but also kind of not. Like, my first character was actually a Char Guardian, and I felt like it didn't really match at all. So I ended up deleting her and making her a Norn Guardian instead. And generally I've been trying, I originally tried after that to kind of stick to like what seems appropriate, like you said. Like I made a Sylvari Mesmer, I made a Char Engineer, I made a Asura Elementalist, I made a human warrior, but slowly the Sylvari addiction took over, and now it's just salads all the way down.
At least you're admitting it's an addiction. That is the first step. So congratulations.
And I've got Sarah addicted now as well. Yeah, real life Mordremoth is a problem even out of game.
It's making you roll Sylvari.
It's true. It's so true. So I have actually been thinking about making a Sylvari Engineer lately. So, like I said, that was like originally one thing that I thought, oh gosh, Sylvari Engineer, that's so weird. That doesn't make any sense. But now it's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. I have color schemes maybe picked out for that.
Oh, maybe you do.
Maybe. Listen to you. Maybe.
Maybe.
We all know the truth. You've already planned every single thing out.
I have my Revenant already planned out. That class doesn't even exist yet.
I can't even create a second character, and you've got like a dozen.
Yeah. Machiel in chat says, "Careful, Scarlet was an engineer too." This is true. Scarlet Briar was an engineer, Sylvari, and that led to bad things.
That's more like encouragement for you at this point.
I know. I'm terrible. Okay, so yeah, if you'd like to contact us, if you have a discussion topic you'd like to hear from us, if you have a specific area of lore that you'd like to hear us talk about, anything, or if you have like a new player question for us for the Academy section, email us at podcast@guildwarsplayers.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us or ask us stuff on Twitter. The Players Alliance is @PlayersAlly. The Guild Wars Players site is @GWPlayers. I'm @Sithrith. Draculetta is @Draculetta_72. And Athelros is @Athelros. And you can also find the three of us in game. I'm to be found at Sithrith.6741. Draculetta is at Draculetta.7410. And Athelros is Athelros.3164. The Players Alliance Network has a whole bunch of live shows besides this one. Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern is DDO Players News. Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern is this show, Guild Wars Players News. And Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern is Lotro Players News. You can find links to all of these live shows at guildwarsplayers.com/live. There's a link there to the live chat. And that's it for today. Thank you all very, very much for listening. And this is Sithrith reminding you to look before you leap.